sorry, Sunday video. Actually, I was not there. So in that, like we have introduced one concept that view and means to avoid a lot of load in a single controller, which
mm,
can create a performance issue. Instead of that, we should try to make a view like different views for everything. So
mm,
in that, like means a small doubt, I think.
mhm,
So means so for every view we will have with the same naming convention that controller would be there. Am I right?
right.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
And we have to first whenever we are defining a view. So in that you were facing one error that even though you have commented that view in a that you have introduced one grid table. So in that table, when you were trying to display, so still we were getting the user that login username and password, even though you have commented that in the view that particular view part which you have written over there.
Mm,
So still in the controller that thing was present. Because of that, we were able to see the username and password. So
mm,
I
mm,
want to understand, we have, because Vue is responsible for showing the data in that page. So even though we have commented in the view, why still it's showing from the controller side and we are able to display. You got my question? Means
mm.
it's only
Yes.
to the last video only. So that
Okay.
was my doubt that why it's coming from the controller, because Vue is responsible for showing the data in the page. Controller is just for processing and doing some functionality and everything. So that was my
Yeah, yeah.
confusion actually.
See, in SAP UI5 application, there are two ways to design a view. Okay, so you can create the content of the view. Sorry, the content of the app with the help of view, or you can also create the content of the app with the help of controller. So there are two options. But always there is a relationship between a view and controller. Means it's your choice whether you want to design a app through view entirely or through controller entirely. Okay. So now let's say you commented the code from the view, right? So still the controls were displaying. Why? Because we have defined it inside the controller. So we cannot say that the controller is only used for writing the logic. No, you can also create the views from the controller. That is also possible. It's your choice. But as a best practice, what we need to do that instead of designing the entire view from the controller, you should design it from the view. That's only the thing. But in okay, but what we used to do actually from the controller, we have just loaded the fragment, right? And then that fragment we are adding it in the inside the page. So nothing that we didn't design any view from the controller. We are just loading the fragment from the controller and we are adding that fragment content inside the page. Only that was the difference.
Yes, yes. So
Okay.
yes,
Mhm,
I got your point. So
mm,
you mean to say, so now I'm able to relate the things, because last time I do remember that we were able to create some buttons and
mm,
some
mm.
thing through controller. You were showing that
Right.
some if in case we need some dynamic display or push button, if we click over there, then
Mm,
we
mm.
can handle it in the controller, which we cannot achieve in view. So now I'm
Right.
able to relate those things with that part.
Okay.
Okay.
See,
Yes.
with for one thing I can say, view for sure it will have its own controller. But for controller, for example, if I talk about the controller, right? A controller should not have any view. That's an optional one. Because let's say without writing a single line of code inside the view, if you're writing all the JavaScript code inside controller, still you can design your entire app from the controller. View is just optional in that case if we consider. But what SAP is saying that, yeah, it is better that if you separate the logic of the JavaScript code from the XML code, right? Otherwise, the MVC architecture, the design pattern which we are following, it's not good then. we're not following it properly then in that case.
Okay. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you, Vic. So my doubt is clear. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, but that's what why I'm telling you to design, because on that day only when I thought of when I designed the button control from the controller, one assignment I have given you to design a simple form entirely from the controller. So guys, have you tried it or not? I still remember that assignment I've given to you, right? So
Yeah.
today,
Yes, sir.
at least guys, you can try it today. Okay. Just try to design the, what I want to say that at least design your app entirely from the controller. Just try it once. Okay. There is a lot of learnings you will get from that. Because see, for sure, you will not get the project entirely from scratch. Let's say in the future, if you're going to support any app, let's say that developer, he has created the entire view from the controller, not from the view, then what will happen? If you don't have any experience of designing the view from the controller, so that will be difficult, right? So what I'm trying to say, you at least you should have the practice in both cases. Okay, you should have at least experience in two cases, that designing the entire view inside the view.xml file or designing the entire view from the controller. Okay, just try it. At least there are already in API reference everything is given. Okay, everything is given. You can utilize the methods, you can utilize the constructor, you can also utilize the properties, and with the help of that you can easily design a UI5 application from that. Okay, fine. Yeah, any questions other from that, Manish or
Yeah,
Pinaki?
Avik,
Yes.
just one thing. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sharing my screen.
Yeah, yeah, do it quickly.
Can you see it now?
Yes, it is visible.
Actually, everywhere it is asking for ID. If I'm not giving it, it is giving error.
Why?
I don't know if I'm removing any of these IDs.
Just remove. Yeah, remove from each and every place.
Giving error if I'm removing it, and it is asking to generate the
No,
file.
that is fine. That is fine, Pinaki.
But in
Yeah,
output in
that is just
this,
a suggestion it is providing you to add an ID, but not required.
but if I'm removing it now, it is not displaying anything.
Okay, run that.
I think you need to remove from text also. 24.
Yes.
That's why.
Just keep your console tab open, Pinaki, once.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Manish, can you help Pinaki now?
Oh, it's coming. It's coming.
It's coming.
It's coming. Okay. No, no.
Means
Somewhere it was not coming actually. That's what.
Pinaki, you don't need IDs, okay? IDs, why we are working till now IDs, because model was not introduced, right? We
Actually, it
didn't
was
discuss
coming. It is
anything about the
coming. It
models.
is coming in red now. That's what I thought. It is a error.
No, 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 no. That's just a suggestion it's adding. And now if you see, still it's showing the column in the red
Yes.
color,
Yes.
right? It's highlighted in red.
Yes.
I don't know,
Uh,
because I have seen this issue in couple of bars also. In licensed bars also, I have seen this issue. It will
okay.
show this that it's not properly defined, but you can ignore.
Okay. 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 Sure.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So any other question? No, right? So shall we start?
yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. 1 second. Okay. So guys, in previous session we have covered only JSON model, right? So we have seen only the data binding from the view.xml file, not from the controller. Okay, and we have also seen that how to initialize a model, how to create an instance of the model, and how to provide a local data source, right, from the project. For example, we have added a local file product.json file inside the model folder. And then from that product.json file only, we are providing the JSON data to JSON model, right? Because if you're working with the JSON model, for sure, it needs the data in the JSON format. Okay, not in any other format. It needs the data in the JSON format. So that's why we have used JSON model. And apart from the JSON model, what we covered that it is completely a client side model. Okay. JSON model will not communicate with your database. Okay. It's not a proper, it's just a model which will display the data on the client side. Okay. And it's only intended to use for small data set. You cannot store the data more than 1 lakhs in JSON model because it is a client side model, right? How it will hold. Okay, for holding 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 or 10,000 also, it's fine. But for sure, you will see a lot of performance issues at that time. So if you're working with the small data, so you can go and you can use the JSON model. Okay, but 99% guys, we have to use JSON model only. Okay, because nowadays any OData service, if any guy is developing, right? So for sure, the data that you will receive, it would be in JSON format. Okay. And in order to work with the JSON data, you can use the JSON model. Okay. So till now the JSON model only we covered, right? So we have so many other things like resource model is there, OData model is there. So these two models again we need to cover. Okay. And before that, before we start with the resource and the OData model, we need to complete two more important topics. One is the binding modes and second one is the binding types. Okay. So let's start with the binding modes first. Okay.
Avik, just a minute.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yes.
in previous class, you said the JSON data was binded to the table in manifest JSON,
Uh-huh.
and there are one concept in controller we can also do it, right?
Yes. In controller also we can do, but yeah, we will do that. Okay.
Yes, yes.
So
Okay,
that we will cover now with the help of these binding modes. Okay.
okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So guys, there are three types of binding modes in SAP UI5. Okay. So that is one-way binding mode, two-way binding mode, and one-time binding mode. Okay. So only three types of binding modes are available so far. Okay, let me open API reference, search for binding mode. Okay, can you see here? So default means, see by default JSON model supports two-way binding mode. Okay, so by default JSON model supports two-way binding mode. That's why default means whenever you see the default, right? So default means for JSON model default binding mode is two-way. Okay, if I search for JSON model here, one second. Okay, so here information is not given. So what I will do, yeah, I can show you that in the constructor data. Okay, I'll get the instance of the JSON model and after that I'll show you what is the default binding mode. Otherwise, let me do one thing, preview the application. Let me run this application. So guys, my screen is visible, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so in earlier session, we have just created one table control and we have created 5 columns. And then for each column, we have done the data binding for the cells, right? That's what we have covered so far. And from which place we initialize the model? We have initialized the JSON model from the manifest.json file, right? So from manifest.json file only, we have just created the model instance. And then from that only, with the help of data binding, we are able to bind the data source or the data to this table control. Okay, so let's do one thing. So if I'm clicking on open dialog, right? So I'll just put a breakpoint on this open dialog method, and I'll try to get the instance of JSON model, which we have binded to this table. Okay. So let's see what is the model name. Okay. So model name is product model, right? So this is what the model name we have. Okay. So this is our model name. So let's get this model information and let's try to see what is the default binding mode for this JSON model. Okay. So the button is open dialog. For that, we have method open dialog. So we can just put a breakpoint in this open dialog. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Let me click on inspect, go to the source, put a breakpoint here. Okay, fine. So once I click on open dialog, right? So then only I can easily write a code this and all. Okay, otherwise this will be undefined. This dot owner component dot get model. At the get model, I can write, sorry, I can provide the model name inside this. Sorry for that. Yeah, what is the model name? Product model, right? So this is our model name. So now this is what, once you get the model, right? So it will return the constructor. Constructor means every time, okay, every time you declare any control, right? A constructor will be initialized internally. Okay. But let's say if you want to initialize it from the controller, so you have to use new keyword, right? Once you write the new keyword, your constructor will be initialized, an instance will be created for that constructor. Okay. So now if I expand this constructor, so if you look at, so there is a default binding mode. Can you see here a default binding mode? So this is our JSON model. For JSON model, default binding mode is two-way always. Okay. It is a two-way binding mode always, but supported binding modes are there. Can you see here? So for the JSON model, it can support all the three binding modes: one time, one way, and two way. Okay. So now by default, it is two way, but let's say I want to make it as one way or one time. How I can do that? So I just need to write get model. After that, I can write dot set default binding mode. Okay. Or otherwise, I'll just write get. So if I write get also, right, it will return two way. Okay. So there is a standard method which will help you to return or to set the default binding mode. All right. If I search here, set default. Can you see here? This is the method, okay, which will help you to set the binding mode, and it will also help you to get the default binding mode. Okay.
With
So,
one doubt, uh,
mhm,
I just want
yes.
to understand that you have mentioned that set default binding mode. So
Mhm.
means for us, like it would be like very means for us it will be very like time consuming to find out that which method we need to use. So means can you guide us like how you directly got to know that this is a method I need to find out, and what can you suggest us that
See,
how
that
what should be approach?
approach should be practice.
Acha.
Only one thing, practice. Because how I can remember, because I have done lot of projects, so that's why I can remember, right? But as a new beginner, yeah, for sure, some at least some period of time, uh, at least you will not remember all these methods. But after some time, for sure you will return, right? For sure you will remember all these methods. It just needs a practice.
No, you are right on this part, but my question is that you got to know that you need to use a get binding mode to make it one way, right, or one time. So if I also want to do so, means which
Hmm.
area I need to research, or
Okay,
which
see,
part I need to
yeah.
research that I want.
Okay, see, for example, now, as of now, if you see, we are inside the JSON model, right? So now inside the JSON model, we already know that binding modes are there for the JSON model. Okay, that is important concept, and that will be applied to each and every model. So now in this case, if I look at the methods, right? So there is no default binding mode I can see, right? I can only see a couple of methods like load data, set JSON, set property and all. But there is no set default binding mode. Okay. So what I can do, I can go to the extents client model. Now, if I look at the expand, sorry, if I look at the method, right, still I will not see any method like set default binding mode. Again, there is one more extents to the model. If I look here, so you will see all the methods from here. Can you see here set default binding mode here?
Yes, yes.
Okay, this is what the means. It's not a problem because inheritance concept is applied in each and
Mhm.
every case. So we have to explore one by one. And then how you will explore depending on your project need. Okay, so based on the different requirement, you will explore. But why I'm trying to say, because these are the basic concepts for the any model, right? Like for example, why we are setting default binding mode, what is the purpose, right? And by default, which model supports which binding mode. Okay, that also plays an important role.
Mhm.
And I'll show you why we have to set default binding mode and all.
Okay.
Okay, so far if you want to identify default binding mode, this is how we need to go. Okay, this is how we need to traverse. Then only we can get the methods which are applicable to this model. Okay, so now let's do one thing. So by default we have the binding mode as a two-way. Let's say I want to set it as a one-way. Okay, I can directly provide, or I can go to that binding mode, set default. Yeah, set default binding mode. And in that we need to provide S mode. So now S mode means this is what the type we need to provide. Okay, you can provide anything. You can directly copy. Let's say I'm going to provide one time. You just paste it here and enter. So now if you try to get the get default binding mode, you will see one time rather than two way. Now it is one time. So if you also look at the constructor, right? In constructor, you will see that default binding mode is one time. Okay. So now what is this one time? What is one way and what is two way? Okay. Let's try to identify what it is. Okay. I'll do one thing, guys. I'm just going to comment this table control. Okay. For a second. Okay. So as of now, nothing is there. So I will declare two input fields. Okay. Let's understand it easily. Input. Okay. So now in this input, what I will do. 1 second. Okay. In this input, I'm just going to do the data binding. Okay. So I'm going to provide the first index number. Okay. First index numbers record like name. Okay. Okay. So now it will get the name information from the zeroth record. That's from the product collection array. Sorry, that from product collection array of object. Okay. Can you see now? Now we have this notebook basic 15 and below also we have notebook basic 15. Okay. So we have two input fields. Okay. I'll add one more property. Okay. Let's see the output now. Okay, so now this is our input field. Okay, fine. So we have used two different input fields, but the binding is same for two different input fields, right? Binding is same for two different input fields. because we have binded only the name property. Now, if I try to remove the phi on above, can you see what is happening now? What is happening now?
The below input box, that value is also getting.
Yeah, how it is getting updated? Because JSON model by default, it supports two-way binding mode. So what two-way binding mode means, a data will flow from model to view and also from view to model. Okay, means initially when you created, when you loaded this app, by default, so when you initialize your JSON model with the JSON data, so now the data is updated inside the model, right? So now data is available inside the JSON model. So that data, it was flowed from one direction, that is from model to the view. Okay. So now from model to view, data is flowing. So that's why we can see the information on the input field. Okay. Now let's say if I'm trying to do any change. Okay. So if I do any change, so what will happen? So this updated information, again, it will flow from view to the model. Okay. And then this data, it will be updated inside the view. Sorry, inside the JSON model. You got it now? Data will flow in two directions. That is from model to view and from view to model. Okay, so that type of data or that type of binding mode is nothing but two-way binding mode. Okay, so there are three types of binding modes. One is a one-time. One second, guys. Yeah, sorry for that, guys. Okay, so two-way binding mode means the data will flow from model to view and from view to model. So
Avi, can you,
anything you update.
Avi, hello?
Mhm.
Avi, can you check that JSON file? Is it changed or same
Yes,
notebook?
yes. Yeah, I'll show you. Wait. Okay, so now atom, because see, the binding is, see, we have binded the two properties, right? We have binded the same property, that is name. So now the second input field, right? We have made the changes in the first input field. So whatever the data is available in the first input field, same value it will be updated inside the model, and automatically again from model to view, again it's updating. That's why you are not able to, you're able to see the updated value inside the second input field because of the two-way binding mode. Okay, let's do one thing. We already have the breakpoint in this. Yeah. Okay, now I'll just get the information. Dot get data. Okay, so now in product collection, we have binded the zeroth property, right? Can you see now here name?
Yes,
What it is?
it is changing.
Yeah, this is how it is getting changed. Okay, so this is nothing but it is a two-way binding mode. Okay, so whatever you're updating from the front end, because of the data binding instance that is created, right? So at the time of model initialization, instance will be created of that model. And at the same time, data binding instance is also created for that model. So that data binding instance, what it will do, it will help us to bind the data source to the control. Okay, and at the same time, it will also help to make sure that whatever the data you are updating, right, from the view, so that should be updated inside the model. And then how it should update based on the binding mode. Okay, by default, JSON model supports two-way binding mode. Now let's consider if I try to make this set default binding mode as one time. Okay, so let's consider now I'm making the default binding mode as one time. Okay. Yeah, it will not work because data is already flowed from. 1 second. Okay, this thing should be done at the initial step level. Okay, not afterwards. I'll do one thing now. So now in the next case, what I will do, so at least two-way binding mode, any questions guys, if you have? Two-way binding mode is clear?
Yes, Avi.
Okay. So there is nothing to explain in this. Only remember that data will flow in two directions, from model to view and from view to model. So that's why now in this case, if you consider, do I need IDs? Do I need to provide IDs? Let's say if you have the 5 input fields in your simple form. Now user is entering in each and every property. Okay. So as soon as user is entering, so for sure you will have that information in your model, right? Do you need ID of the input field? No, right? You can directly get the model information, and in that you will see whatever user has typed, right? So that information will be available inside the model. So now in that case, do you need any ID of a table or ID of any control? No, right? We don't need any ID of control. That. Okay. Okay, so that is nothing but two-way binding. So now let's see what is one way. So one way means data will flow from model to view, not from view to model. Okay, so data is flowing only in one direction. That is from model to view. So anything, let's say if you're updating the model, so again it will update the view. But anything if you're updating on the view, it won't update your JSON model. Okay, is it clear?
Yes, Avi.
Okay, so there are, okay, you can also set binding mode here also. So I'll tell you what we can do here. So you can provide it in the path. Because why I'm providing in an object structure, because I need to provide one more property for the type, for the mode, sorry. Can you see now?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's just
Because
changing in the view, but it will not update the model.
yes, it won't update the model. I have explicitly said that. So whatever the property we have binded, right, it should not update the model. Why? Because in some cases, if you consider, okay, we'll do one thing. We already have one table, right? So we already have one table. As soon as I click on table, now let's say you will bring that information in one pop-up. Okay, that existing information you will bring for editing purpose. So if what user will do, so let's say if user want to update the existing information, so he should at least he should be able to see the existing information as it is, right? Which is already written or which is already there inside the database. So from that, if user is trying to do some changes, so once the user is clicking on save, then only it should update the JSON model. Before that, it should not update the JSON model. But if you're keeping by default as a two-way, what will happen? Same time, whatever you have done right on the view, whatever you have updated, that same information without clicking on save, that information will be updated on your JSON model without clicking on save button. So that will be a defect. Okay, that will create a issue because user did not click on the save button, right? Before that only how you're going to save that data inside the JSON model. Guys, are you getting it? Okay, we'll do one thing. So that would be better. So, okay, at least you got it right. One way and two way. Any questions in that?
No, no. Wait.
No, right? So
I have
this
one doubt.
hmm,
One way and two way, which models will
mhm.
support?
Sorry.
One way binding, which model will support, and two way binding, which models will support?
Okay. See, one time there are three binding modes, specially one way, two way, and one time. So JSON model supports all the three binding modes. Okay. But when it comes to the resource model, right? Resource model only supports one time binding mode. Okay. But when it comes to the OData model also supports all the three way, all the three binding modes. Okay, fine.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, let's do one thing now. So the one time, so guys, one more binding mode is left, right? One time. So that we will see in resource model. Okay. So there is no that much of difference between one way and one time. One way means what will happen? One way, what it will do? Every time you update the model, right? So that same information again, it will be updated on the view. Because let's say if you're going to update a model with some content. Okay, so let's consider that if you're going to update a model, as soon as you update the model, so same information will be updated on the view. But if you consider the one time, so you cannot update the model after that because it is one time. One time means only once in that application. After that, you cannot update the model. And if you're going to update also, that will not work. Okay. So that's why we are using resource model. So resource model will see that once we complete with this binding modes and binding types. Okay. So guys, at least clear one way and two way.
Yes, Abhi.
Okay. Okay. So let's start with the binding types. Okay. So for binding types, right? So there are three types of binding types. One is the property binding. Second one is aggregation binding. And third one is context binding, or you can also call it as element binding. Okay. So there are three types of bindings. Okay, fine. So in binding types, we have property binding. Second, we have aggregation binding and aggregation binding. Third, we have element binding. You can also call it as context binding. Okay. So now let's see what is a property binding. Okay. In first. So property binding means now see, we have from the view side, we have already done a property binding. Can you see? This is one kind of property binding only. 1 second. Let me comment out this first one. So when you look at this input control, okay, so when you look at this input control, we have initialized this input control with its property value. Okay, and at the same time, we have also provided a binding path, right? So this is nothing but a property binding. So you have defined a property of a control with a binding data or with a binding property. So that is nothing but your property binding. You're getting it right, guys? Property binding means a value is nothing but it is a property of input field. Okay. And with this property value, what we are doing, we are binding this property value with this data binding, right? So name is nothing but this is nothing but this is your data binding. So this data binding context you're providing to the value property. And in this value property, you're providing to the input control. Okay. So at the same time, you're doing two things. You're initializing a property of a control, and at the same time, you're also providing a binding. Okay, so this is nothing but your property binding. So there are two ways to achieve this. One is with the help of XML, and the same thing you can achieve it with the help of controller. Okay, how you can do that? So let me do one thing. Let me comment out this code.
One thing I want to understand is that
Hmm.
like the path which has been written like /0/name.
Uh-huh.
Uh, so is that like it's going to that product model folder, and in that there is a file product collection, and in that
See,
we are referring to
no,
that.
no, no. I'll tell you what it to be. Okay, 1 second. 1 second. I think I don't know why. Okay. Now I'll tell you what I have done in that. What is that zero and how we are getting that information. Okay, so I'll put a breakpoint here. I'll click on open dialog. Okay. So let me get the data from that model. So get data, it is a method which will help you to get the data from the JSON model. Okay, so now what is the name of our JSON model? It is a product model, right? So now if I get the data, we have the data in two properties, right? Inside the product collection and inside the product collection start. So these are the two properties. And these two properties means first of all, whatever the data we have. So the data which we are getting it, right? It is in the object format or it is in the JSON format. Can you see now? We have a object structure and in that we have two properties defined, right? Product collection and product collection start. Guys, is it clear so far?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now the thing is now to this input field. Okay, so now to this input field, if you look at, we have provided the path like product model, which is fine. Okay, because we need to provide the model name. After that greater than sign, after that slash. Why we are providing the slash? Because we want to go inside this object. Then only we can access the product collection, right? So if you consider, let's say if I want to access a product collection, can I write directly product collection? Will it work? It will directly throw the error because this product collection property is inside the object. Okay, and if you want to access any property from the object, so we need to provide dot in case of JavaScript, right? You are providing a dot, then only you can access the product collection. Can you see now? I'm able to access the product collection. But when it comes to the data binding, right? When it comes to the data binding, we have to use slash. Now got it?
Yes. So,
Okay,
so
that's why.
we are referring to product model, and inside that we are referring to product collection. That two things we are getting.
Yes, yes. Now, as soon as we come inside the product collection, now inside the product collection, we have the data in array format, right? We have the data inside the array format. So I want to access the first record. So which is at the zeroth index number. Okay. So this index number I have used slash because as it is inside the array. So I have used slash 0. Okay. Now inside the 0, after providing the 0 again, So after providing the 0, again I have the data in object format, right? Again I have the data inside the object format. So again, if I want to access the name property, again I have to use slash, right? After the 0, I have provided the slash and then name property. Now is it clear?
Yes, but I think zero is only for fetching the first record. But what about if we want to fetch dynamically?
Dynamically means, if you see, this is just a first record.
Okay.
This I have just shown you one example.
Okay, okay. No, right. Actually, the doubt came inside of because generally we never deal with only, matlab, very rare case.
Yeah, yeah. See,
Uh,
when you will use this, for example, let's say for sure you will get only 2 records from the backend. Okay, but your backend guy is saying always you have to take the record from the first, not from the
okay,
second.
okay.
So in that case, what you will do? You will do the hard code only, right?
Yes, yes,
Because
yes.
your backend guy already he told you that always you will get the information in the 0th record, not on the first record.
Yes.
Okay. Otherwise, yeah, if you want to do the dynamically, then for sure we need to write a JavaScript code here.
Okay, okay.
Okay. But at least so far the path is clear.
Yes, yes.
Whatever the
Very much
path we
clear.
have
Thank
used.
you.
And
Yes,
this is
yes.
very
Right.
important, guys. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's why I have used it. And yeah. Okay. So
So
where are we?
at a time, only one column we can fetch, right? If I want to fetch another column also apart from name, some
Mhm.
surname is there. So that also slash surname, right? We will get that also.
Ah, yes, yes. Yeah.
Okay,
Means, for
okay.
example, we have binded only one property here as of now.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. You can also bind one more property like this.
Acha, another
You can
property we
just
have to
copy
find.
and you can
Okay,
paste it here.
got it.
Okay. And
Okay,
you can provide a property name. Okay. But let's say
okay,
if you want to provide 2, 3 information at the same time, and then from that you need to format that, right? So we'll see that in formatters. We
okay.
have a formatter and expression concept. So in that I'll show you how the composite binding will work. Okay. Okay. So guys, there is one more difference. Yeah, one more thing which I need to tell you. So there are two binding syntax. One is the relative binding and second one is the absolute binding. Okay. So when it comes to the absolute binding will always have slash in the binding path. Okay. Absolute binding will always have the slash in the binding path. But when it comes to the relative binding will won't have any slash. So for example, if I scroll down, can you see a slash? Can you see slash here? No, right?
No, no.
Because this is nothing but it is your absolute sorry, relative binding. So how relative binding, why we don't need to pass a slash? Because see, when you do the absolute binding, right, first of all you're just binding the context in this items. If you look at it, we have just provided the main path, right? So context we have already provided, and so from that context, so whatever the column list item is there, right? So this column list item, it will be generated on runtime based on the model data. So in that case, so this absolute and relative, this logic will be handled internally. So you don't need to provide any slash and 0 dynamically, as you said, Manish. You only asked, right? How we can
Yes,
provide
yes,
0 dynamically.
yes, yes,
So
yes,
this
yes.
dynamically, it is handled through the relative. Means once you do the absolute binding on the top, so internally it will be handled. So based on the model data, it will iterate one by one and it will clone this column list item and it will create one by one after that. I know that this concept is a little bit confusing, but this is what we have to do always. Okay, if you're working with the aggregation concept, right? So aggregation concept, so always there are two paths we need to provide for aggregation. One is the main parent path, and then below is the child level path. Okay, one child level path you just need to provide. So after that, it will be generated on runtime.
So it will show multiple records in the view, right?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
it
It
will
will not.
it will show.
It. Mhm, mhm, mhm.
Mhm.
So, only one record if you want to fetch, so that won't happen. For that, we have to go with the absolute binding, and for the relative binding, it will show multiple records.
Yes,
Okay.
means how the relative binding means. See, without providing slash, how it's getting the context, because that context information we are providing it on the top only. Basic information we need to provide. Okay, then only it will take. For example, if I do slash 0, okay. Not sure whether this will work or not. Let's do one thing. Okay, let me uncomment this.
And in relative binding, we are also not defining that product collection and that other two things where that also is not required. Okay.
Yeah. Product collection 0. Yes. Why we don't need to provide? Because this information is already available on the top. So what it will do, see this model path and this product collection. We are already telling the table aggregation items that it needs to pick the data from the product collection. Okay. So product collection, we don't need here product collection in the below data. You directly need to point out to the property. So from runtime, based on the aggregation concept, it will iterate one by one and it will create the column list item dynamically. Okay. No, this will not work actually. Okay, fine. Yeah, let's do one thing now. So let's complete the property binding, and after that we'll see the aggregation binding. So guys, aggregation binding we have already seen from the view level, right? So whatever we have done it right so far, this is aggregation binding only. We have done the aggregation of items on the top, and what aggregation will do? So aggregation will create the child. It will create the children's from the model data dynamically on the runtime. Okay, and then how it will create, it depends on the model data. If you have the 10 records in the inside the model, so it will create the 10 column list items. If you have 100, so it will create the 100 column list item, but that information you need to provide on the top to the items. Fine, guys, is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Aggregation on the view level we have seen. So now we will see how the aggregation is done from the controller level, how the property binding is done on the controller level, and how the element binding is done on the controller level. So three most important things we will see now. Okay, so before we see, let's take a 10 minutes break and we can continue after that. Okay, after 10 minutes, we can start with that controller part. And then after that, we will see with the resource model. Okay, yeah, let's take a 10 minutes break. Guys, hello.
Yes, Avi. Yes.
Yeah, you all are back, right? Manish, Pinaki.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Avi.
Yeah, okay. Okay, fine. Okay, so let's first see the property binding from the controller. Okay, so we'll do one thing. So let me comment out this table control for a second. Okay, so now what I will do here, I'll just create an input control from controller. Okay, so I'm just declaring one variable o input, and then I'm writing new sap.m.input. Okay, and inside the input, okay, so now we have the value property. So this value property, what I will do, I will just initialize this property value with the binding, or I will just bind a property to this. Same, whatever I have done it right in the view, same I can do, and I can just copy that. That's it. Okay, but it should be added inside the string format. And then I will add this o input onto the page. Fine. Now we should see the input field with the same property or the same value. Can you see now here? Okay. So this is how you can do the binding from the controller side for any control. Okay. Input, value, and like this. But let's say now nothing is declared. Sorry, Control Z. I will just comment out this code for a second. Now let's say instead of that, if you have declared like this, O input equal to new sap.m.input. Okay, I just have an instance of input inside o input variable. So I can write o input dot bind property. So there is a method to bind a property to the input control. So what this bind property will do, it will initialize the property of control with the property of binding. Okay, so now what property I need to bind? I need to bind a property of value. This is where it is a binding. Okay, so this is a path that you will bind. Can you see now? See, we still have the same output. Okay, so this is how the bind property or the property binding is done for the control level. So any questions in this, guys, for property binding?
Avi, how can we bind the table?
That is under aggregation. We'll see that now.
Okay,
Vivek,
and
one question.
uh, suppose there
Mm-hmm.
are two inputs
Mm-hmm.
for a sing. So how can we identify which input we need to bind?
What?
There is no
I,
ID. Also, you are not.
ID means that's what you need to at the time of when you're in declaring the controls, right? At that time only you just specify the properties which we are going to bind, and you maintain the sequence, because whenever you are adding the content inside the page, right? For sure, this content will be added in a sequential manner.
Okay,
So
suppose we
let's
have
say if you're
another
adding the
input
first
field.
input. Mhm.
Suppose we have another input field after this one. We need to add
Mhm.
after this. Uh,
See this
okay, we
naming
need to create
convention, I
another.
have added O input.
Acha,
Okay,
huh.
this is the instance of this input field. But let's say if I want this input field for the first name. Okay, fine. Same like that, I'll create one more variable. Now it's clear. Now you will add, means let's say I'm just copying it. So you will add O first name, and after that you will add O last name. And in this bind property, so O first name and second one is O last name. Okay, let's say if I'm name and I'm binding the first record here. Instead of zeroed, I'm binding the first record. So I should see now two input fields with two different values, right? Okay. Sequence will matter. You cannot add, see, whenever you're adding, right? So the first name input field will be your first control inside the page. And the next after that, see, it depends on the add content. Let's say if I'm adding like this. Now what will happen? Last input field or the last name input field will be added, will be your first input field. Okay. And your first name would be your second input field inside the page. So this sequence is also very important. Okay, fine, guys.
Avik, one doubt. Actually, it's just a basic doubt. Means in that function, that the bind property, you have mentioned two parameters over there,
Right.
value and that part. So means for me, for me, it's like completely new. So I just want to understand like how you got to. Means obviously it's come with the practice, but still, can we see that the what are the parameters available? That which
Yes,
parameter we need
yes.
to find?
Yeah, yeah. Yes. One
So
second. I'll show you.
because when you write directly, so for me, it's a completely
No,
new.
no, no
I
issues.
can't,
I'll
yeah,
explain.
so very small doubt are there, but
Whenever I do it right, any control which if I'm calling, see this
yes,
bind property, I'm calling on which input field? Input control, right?
yes,
So
yes,
what
yes.
you need to do? So this O first name is nothing but it is an instance of input field. So at the end, O first name, it's holding all the information of input control.
Yes.
So this with the help of this control, with the help of this instance only, I can easily call any method of input field, right? So at the end, what I need to see, I need to check the input field, whether I have that property or not, this method, bind property.
Yes.
So if I'm going to check here bind property, so it's not there. Okay, so where I need to go, input base. Here I can see the bind property. Yes, bind value is there. Bind value. Okay, go to the control. Okay, or otherwise directly search for the best thing would be directly search here on the top. Okay, can you see now?
Yes.
Okay, so means at the bottom they will add each and every method below. Okay, at the end. So instead of searching, you means what you can do directly, you can go to this page, Control F and directly search for that bind property. So this is the bind property. Okay, so now inside the bind property, see they have already provided you with the syntax. What it takes, how many parameter it has, everything they will provide you. Okay, so like for example, bind value is also bind method. See, one second, bind property. Yeah. Okay, so inside the bind property, if you see, first one is the path. Okay, S path, which is nothing but the string. The path pointing to the property that should be bound. So
Okay.
with path, with which path I need to
Okay.
bind is the value
Value.
to the
Yes.
input control.
We want
And the
to.
second
Okay.
is the O context. O context means your binding context. So this is my binding context. Okay. And the third parameter is the optional one, which is nothing but the object. Okay, fine.
Got it.
Which is optional, we don't need it. Fine. Any questions in this?
No, completely fine. I got it. Because
Yeah.
in ABAP, like means when I was working on this Excel part and XML view we want to show, so we have some certain classes and methods. So here, this is an approach that how means already you have explained this, but
Mm.
still like I want to understand more. Okay, got it. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay, no problem. Okay, fine. So guys, this is how you can initialize a property, right? This is how you can initialize a property of a control with the property of binding. So that that concept is nothing but it is a property binding. Okay. So let's move to the next topic, aggregation binding. So what is aggregation binding? Aggregation binding means a relationship between your parent and your children. Okay, that's a relationship. But what aggregation binding will do, it will create the child controls on runtime based on the model data. That is nothing but your aggregation binding. So you're binding the aggregation of items. For example, if you consider the table, okay, let's do one thing. So this is a table control. I'll just uncomment and we'll do one thing now here. Okay, I'm just commenting out these items here. Okay, let's do one thing now. Okay, so now this is just a simple table. So if you look at the table, right? So this table will be displayed with the columns. Can you see now here? Okay, the data is not available for this table. Let me comment out this input field also. Okay. Fine now. Okay, so now as of now, we didn't binded any aggregation to the table, right? So we have only binded the columns aggregation. So that's why we are able to see the columns on the top. But we didn't binded the aggregation of items to the table. So now we need to bind the aggregation of items to the table. And at the same time, we also need to provide the context so that a data will be appear inside this table, right? So what we need to do from the controller side. So if I need to follow the aggregation binding, right? So I just need to go to this API reference, search for the table. Okay. Now, how many aggregations we have for the table? Only columns, right? But this column, it's extending some features from the list base. So if I go to the list base, for sure you will see the aggregation of context menu, header toolbar, items, everything, right? So now I need to bind this aggregation to the table. So how I can bind that to this table? So there is one method, bind items. Okay, so there is one method, bind items. There is also one more method, bind aggregation. If you are not able to identify this, so let's go up a little bit. Control, search here for bind. Okay, it's not there. Directly search here. Bind aggregation. Okay. Now this is the method which we are going to use now. So inside the bind aggregation, we need to provide what type of aggregation we need to bind in the first parameter. And in second parameter, we need to provide the binding info. Okay. So now in this binding info, it is nothing but it is your object. Now inside this object, what we can provide the path, we can provide the model name, we can provide the template information. So this template means a template to clone for each item in the aggregation. So whatever you will provide right inside the template, so that will be cloned based on the binding. Means let's say if you have the 100 records, so if you are providing the information inside the template, so that will be cloned for 100 times. Okay, only the data will be different. That data it will bring from the model. Okay, let's do one thing now. Yeah. So let's do the aggregation binding. So for binding the aggregation, first of all, I will just get the table control. Okay, let me get the table control. Or I can, shall I do one thing? Shall I add one button in the footer? So as soon as I click on button, so data will be updated inside the table. Shall we do that?
Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Okay, so I'm adding the text. Okay, So just copy this, go back to this page. Okay. So as soon as I click on button, right? So as soon as I click on this button, update table data, I need this table's ID here. Okay, I'm just providing a ID to this table. Go back. Now just create one variable O table. So get the table ID. Okay. So now we have the table ID. So next thing what we need to do, we need to bind the aggregation of the table, right? Like this, O table dot bind aggregation. Now inside this, inside bind aggregation, what we have inside the bind aggregation, first is the string. First is the name of the public aggregation to the bind. So what aggregation I need to bind to the table? Items, right? Items only we need to bind. And the second one is the object. Inside the O binding info, it is nothing but it is the object. Object means this is how the structure we need to provide like this. Okay, now in this, what we need to provide? We need to provide the path, and second one is the model, the name of the model to bind, and the third one is the template. Okay, so this model and the template is optional. You can directly provide the path. In path also you can directly provide the binding. Okay, whatever we have provided here, right? So this much you can directly copy. Fine. And the model name, we don't need to provide a model name because we already you have provided the model name here, right? In this path, in the path itself. So model is just optional, but template is required. Then only the data will appear inside the table, right? So now inside the template, what we need to provide? If you look at the XML code, so aggregation we have provided, but inside the aggregation, what we have? We have the column list item. So this column list item, we need to create it from the controller. Okay, and in this column list item information, we have to provide it inside the template. Okay. So this template is there, right? I'll just copy this template. I'll provide here. Now inside the template, we need to provide the information of column list item, right? Then only the inside the columns again we have cell aggregation. Then only our this column list item will be created for the table. Now let's do one thing. Now column list item, I will go to the column list item. Search for column list item. Okay, so this is how the column list item, if you look at the constructor, this is how the column list item is declared. Okay, go here. You do one thing before you do the bind aggregation, create one variable O column. Then paste here the constructor. ID, I'm not going to provide any ID. I'm directly going to provide the column list item. So inside the column list item, we have the aggregation of cells. So I will write here cells colon, and inside that I will provide how many controls we need? 5 text controls, right? So I'm going to write new sap.m.text. Provide the binding path. Same whatever we have done, right? Same you just copy and paste. Okay, same like that. How many text controls we need? 5. Okay, name, supplier name. Right. Fine. So our column list item is ready. So this column list item information I will provide in this template.
So we cannot directly take from that view like this
No,
dot
no, no,
that
no,
view, not like that.
no,
Okay.
that's not a possible.
Acha.
Okay. So this is otherwise whatever we are doing right now, it's useless then. Then we should have done it right. Now already we are able to do it from the view level. Why we need the controller then? Okay, in some cases, if you want to do it from the control level, so this is how you can do. Okay, so if you are going to do it from the controller level, so we have to use bind aggregation method, and you can also use bind items. So there are two methods which can help you to do the to achieve this bind aggregation and bind items. So I'll show you bind items also. So now this is clear. So we just created a column list item. So the table is the control. So table supports bind aggregation method. So in that we just provided the items path, and inside the object we provided the path of the actual model with its property. And in template we provided the column list item information. Okay, let's see the data now. Okay, so as of now nothing is coming. Why? Because we have added one button, right? So as soon as we click on the button, a data will be updated inside the table. Can we click on it? See now? Is it coming now?
So if
Okay,
we write in view level, it will directly come. If we want the table data to come on some action, then we need to write it in the controller.
controller level, right? This is
Okay.
the neat and clean explanation.
Okay.
Pinaki.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so if you want to achieve it with the help of action, means if user is clicking on any button, then only if you want to bind the data. So this is what we can do. Okay, this is the best practice. You can directly use bind aggregation method and you can do it. So one more thing, I mean, see, I will just copy this. I'll comment. Same thing you
But
can achieve. 1 second, I'll just complete this. Bind items or bind items or bind item. Which is that method? Go back here. Bind aggregation. It's not here. Yeah, please ask. Yeah, tell me. What is your question?
uh, means in the bind aggregation, has we the concept means you told that it's all about the relation means the cardinality between header and item.
Right.
So here I purely see that we are just fetching the data from the item and just displaying over it. So this can be achieved with other options also like bind item. So means the aggregation part means you got my question. What I mean to say.
No, no, no.
Acha, no. Acha, see, aggregation, like has I know that it's a relation between header and item. So here we are directly fetching from the item and displaying it in the by clicking on that button. So,
Mhm.
I just want to see. I would just want to know that there is no involvement of the header over here. It's
No, no,
directly we
no.
are fetching.
It's not like header and child. No, it's not like
Okay.
that, Manish. Aggregation means in SAP UI5, it is a relationship between your parent control and your child control. It's not about the data. It's about the relationship between the controls.
Okay.
Okay. So now in this case, table is nothing but it is a parent, and column list item means it is a child of the
Okay.
table.
Okay.
You got it now, right?
Yeah. 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 Now I got
Okay.
it.
So
Yeah.
table is the parent and the column list item is the child of the table.
Right.
So now
Okay.
with the help of aggregation concept, table will act as a container. Okay. It,
Okay.
it will act as a container for column list item. But with the help of this aggregation concept, table can create multiple column list item based on the model data. Why?
Okay.
Because it has a relationship. It has an aggregation concept supported with it.
Okay.
Okay, now you got it.
Yes, yes. Now it's clear to me.
Okay, so there is no like header and child. It's
Oh,
like a
actually.
relationship between the controls. So any control which supports aggregation concept, it means that control will act as a parent for some other control for sure. Okay, but let's say if this concept was not there, then will that be possible to add a column list item under the table? No, it won't be possible. Okay, fine now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so there are two methods, bind aggregation and bind items. So if I look at the bind items, right? So only the difference between is that we don't need to provide items as it is, because in the name itself, we can have you're binding the items to the table. Okay, we don't need to pass these items explicitly in the first parameter. You can directly pass the path, the second path. Okay, so that's what I have done. OTable.bind items, and I have directly provided the information of the path and the template. So if I reload, right, and if I click on the bind item, still we will receive the same information. See? Okay. So every session will for sure I will export the project source code so that you can refer this. So guys, any questions in now in bind aggregation? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so one more aggregation
Uh,
I will show you now. So can we
Avik,
create a tiles?
hello Avik.
Yes, yes, Pinaki.
Most of the time, what the developer will do, like they would write the code in manifest JSON or in controller part.
Yes, most probably what they will do, it depends. If you're directly want to do means, see, if you're going to declare the model inside the manifest, right? That is also good practice. There is no harm at all in that. If you're familiar, if you're good, or if you're okay with the manifest declaration, you can. So there is no problem, right? But if you want to declare that, if you want to declare that from the controller, so it's your choice at the end. So there is no restriction that SAP is not telling you that you always have to declare it inside the manifest. It's your choice. But most of the developer, what I have seen, so if you want to work with the JSON model, right? So most of the developers, they are initializing the JSON model inside the controller. Okay, so that's what it's pending now. So we will see that now. Okay, sorry that I just missed it. So far we covered this, but we didn't initialize the JSON model from the controller. Okay, let me show you that. Okay, so far inside the manifest JSON, we have the data source, right? We already provided the data source products data, which we are loading it from the product.json file. Let's say instead of declaring, okay, without declaring this inside the manifest, I want to do it from the controller entirely. So how I can do that? So I'll keep this product data as it is. Okay, this product model as it is. I'll create one more model. Okay, I will create a new model, and inside that I will provide the information. Okay, so I'm creating a new model, but I will access the same information, or I'll do one thing. I'll create one more file. Let me see whether we have sample some data. Okay, shall we do one thing? Okay, let me copy this. Any records it has. Nothing. Okay, let me copy this. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this. Go back here, create a new file here. Okay, your file is created now. Now inside this, I've just added the topping. Fine. So this is a property inside which we have how many? At least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 records are there in this. Okay. Now I need to create a model which will hold this information. Okay. So now I'm going to create it from the controller, not from the manifest. So now from the controller, what we need to write here first we need to create an instance of the model, right? How you will create an instance of the model? You will write O model equal to new. So for declaring the JSON model, right? You can search for JSON model. Okay. So this is a constructor. This is how you need to declare the JSON model. Fine now. Okay. Now inside the JSON model, what we need to provide? So we need to provide the path from which place or the place from where it will load the information. Okay, if you look at this, it has two parameters, O data and O observe. Sorry, B observe. So in O data, you can provide the string that is a path, either the URL where to load the JSON from or the JS object. You can provide the two things inside this. You can directly provide the object like this. Okay, you can directly copy this entirely and you can provide directly inside this. Okay, or otherwise you can provide the path of the file. The path of the file. Okay, the path of this JSON file into that. So far it's clear, guys.
Yes, yes.
So you can directly provide the object or you can directly provide the path. So now I'm going to provide the path. So yeah, let me go here. So we provided the path like this, right? So I'm providing the same path. Copy, go back here, change the file name. Okay, fine. Now JSON model is initialized with the data. Now you need, so now there are two options, whether you want to set this model on the local level, that is on the view level, or on the entire app level. It's your choice how you want to set this. Let's say, let's consider in your app there are 10 views, but you don't want this information to be available for other views because it is irrelevant. So now you only need this information for the registration page .view.xml file or the controller file. You don't want it for any other controller file. So what you will do, you will write this .get view .set model. Now inside the set model has two parameters. Okay. So if I search for the model here, okay. So inside the model, you will have inside the model, you will have set model. This .get view. Okay, let me search here set model. Go to the view. Okay, set model is there inside the view. So if you go to the set model, so it will have couple of properties. Okay, it will accept couple of parameters. So now as of now we have only two parameters. One is the O model. So O model is nothing but this is the model instance that you will provide. Okay, so this can be any name, guys. Okay, this can be any name you can provide. I'm just providing I've just used O model. You can give any name. That's not a problem. So first one is the model instance. So now the O model is nothing but it is an instance of JSON model. So this you're providing in the first parameter. And the second parameter is the name of the model, or undefined. So this is optional. So you can provide, you can give the name to the model, or otherwise it can be a default model. So let's consider I am not going to provide any model name. Okay. So now I'm not going to provide any model name. So how I will bind the data? So I'll declare one drop down value. So I will declare one combo box. So we have one combo box control. Okay. So we have one combo box control. So this we are going to bind with that topping data, right? So if I want to do the binding, so I'll just write combo box. Okay, now inside the combo box, what type of aggregation it supports? It supports the aggregation of items. Okay, now inside the items, what I can add? I can add core item. Okay, so this I need to add. Okay, so this core, it's already declared on the top. Now inside the core, the properties are key and text. Let's say in the key, I'm going to bind. What should I bind here? I'm going to bind the ID. Okay, next is the text. Now inside the text, I'm going to bind type. Okay. Now again on the top, I need to provide the items main path. So as we know, so we didn't provided any model name, right? So what should I do? I can directly provide slash topping slash and this property name. That's it. Okay, now let's see the output. Can you see now data? Guys.
Avik, we don't need to provide any model name here.
Yeah, model name is optional.
Okay.
Optional. It is optional. It depends on you. But what I say, best practice is you provide the model name. You don't keep this JSON model as a default model. Okay. At a time, only one model can be default. But if you are making couple of models as default, so it will create a problem for you.
Avi,
So
can you
best
explain?
practice is. Mhm.
Can you explain again? Means I missed some
Yeah.
part.
Okay. I'll
Yeah,
explain it
yeah.
once again. See, for creating, so far we have seen that we have created the JSON model inside the manifest.json file. But let's say if you want to create a model, or if you want to initialize the model from the controller level, so we need to initialize the constructor, right? So for initializing the constructor, we have to use new keyword. And this is your JSON model. Okay, now inside the JSON model, it accepts two parameters. One is the path, and the second one is the optional, which it depends on you if you want to use it. So now I have provided the path of uh, the JSON file, from which I need to access the resources. Okay, so this is the path of the JSON file. So I have directly provided the path to this JSON model. So now O model is nothing but it is an instance of the JSON model. Okay, so now if I want to set this model on the view or on the app level, so entire app, so I can use this dot get view dot set model. Okay, so set model, it is a method which will help you to set the model on the view or on the app level. Okay, so as of now, I'm just setting this model on the registration page view level, not on the entire app level. Okay, if I want that this model to be set on the entire component level, so only the change I need to do this dot get owner component dot set model. So if I write like this, okay. So this model, whatever the model which I recently initialized, right? So this model will be applicable or will be available in the entire app. Means you can also access this model inside the login page. Okay, fine. But if you're going to use the syntax, right? So this model, it is only available inside the login page. It won't be accessible inside the login page. Okay, but if you're going to create a model inside the manifest, by default, it is declared or it is initialized at the component level. Fine. So far it's clear, guys.
Yes,
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 Avi.
but this
Got it.
this is more somewhat confusing.
Yeah, somewhat confusion means only the change in syntax. If you're going to use get owner component, so whatever you define it, right? Whatever you declare it inside the manifest, same that you have achieved in the controller level with the help of this syntax. Okay, if you're going to use get owner component, so your model will be declared globally. Means your model will be available in the entire app. Means any view or any controller file can access this model. But if you're going to write this.getView.set model, so this view or sorry, this model, it is only available or it is only applicable to this registration page.view.xml file and also to registration page.controller.js file. But it is not available to login page.view.xml file and login page.controller.js file. Okay.
One
Now,
question.
mhm,
So this 45, this dot get owner component dot set model. So uh, means I don't know whether my question would be right or not, but still I
mhm.
want to ask.
Yeah.
Like supposedly there are many like when the programming level goes to much larger, if you say in
Mhm.
the picture. So that time when we define this, and supposedly we have defined the controller also, and so it will override that whatever the existing O model or some different name would be there. It will override that value with
Yes.
this O model. So now
Right.
the
Right.
user will, yeah,
Hmm.
right, right. Okay, so
Because if you're making 2 3 models by default, right? So which model it will return at the end? Means for example, if you want to access this model, how you will access? Earlier we used to access like this dot get view dot get model. If it is declared on the view level, you can access like this. Inside the
yeah.
get model, you can provide the name of the model. Okay, or otherwise, means this is one way and this is another way. Get owner component, get model, right? So if you're declaring it on the view level, so you will write this syntax. If you're declaring it on the component level, you will write this syntax. But now, if you are not provided any model name, so then which model it will provide now? This will create a confusion for you only, right?
Yes, you
So
can
as a
mention
best
the name.
practice, what we can do, you can directly provide the model name here like this. In the second parameter of set model, give comma and in double quotes, you provide the model name like copying model.
Achha, okay.
Okay. So while declaring, while setting this model at that time only, you in the second parameter, you provide the model name. Okay, fine.
So we can call that specific model name whenever we are writing this get model.
Yes. Okay, fine now. So with the help of this O
Avik,
model,
just last question.
mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, that manifest we created one object model in the manifest.json, right? That
Mm-hmm.
object model is accessible for all the views or specific view.
No, no, it is whatever you declared inside the manifest. So this
Yes.
model will be considered as a global model. So it is accessible.
Okay.
Any view and any controller file can access within that app.
Okay. 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 Thanks.
Okay. But in controller, you have the option. You want to, whether you want to define it on the view level, you can define it, or if you want to define it on the app level, you can define it. It's your choice. Okay, it's fine now.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So set model, it is a method of model only. Apart from that, you can also, there are a couple of methods you can call on O model. Okay, you can also use, okay, let me go to the JSON model. Okay, so there are a couple of properties like get JSON is there, get property is there, load data, set JSON, set property. All these methods you can use it. Now what we have done, we have directly provided the data right here. So let's say you want to manually set the data or load the data. So you can use the method load data. Okay, inside the load data, you can directly provide the URL. Okay, and it will help you to read the data from that. Okay, so that will help you to read the data from that file with the help of O model. How you need to write? You need to write O model dot load data. And inside that, you can provide this path. Okay, fine now. Or let's consider you have data like this where obj. Okay, I'm just giving you one example. Consider you have the data like this. Okay, so now this information, if you need to set inside the model, so how you can write? You can write O model dot set data. And inside this set data, you can provide this obj. Okay, so there are multiple ways to achieve. Load data, if you're loading the data from some particular URL or from some file, you can use the load data. Or let's say if you already have an object like this, so you can just provide this information to the model with the help of set data. So set data will help you to set the information to the model, JSON model. Fine now, guys, any questions? It's clear, right? So now, see, it depends. Now, as I don't have any model name, so that's why I've directly used slash because we have the information in the object, right? In this file. So if I want to access this property inside the object, so I have to use slash. So that's why I've used slash, and after that I have used the stopping property. So this is the main path for the combo box. And then inside the child, I don't need to use any slash and all. So this is one kind of relative binding. Okay, so you just binded the main context, and after that from that context, it can easily access the properties. The row level properties it can access like ID and type. So that's why we are able to see these drop down values. Sorry, we have added the model name, right? So now if I provide the model name here, here also I need to provide a model name. Okay. So now once it reload, we should have the data. Fine now. Okay, guys, I hope this is clear so far.
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, so now last concept is element binding, which is nothing but context binding. So yeah, let's take 5 minutes break. And after that, we can start with the context binding. And so context binding, yeah, for sure, it will take half an hour. And after that, 10 minutes break. So tomorrow, can we see the resource model and or today only we should see that?
Tomorrow
Let's
only
see
we can see.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow,
Uh,
right? Because today
Yes.
looks like it's more.
yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot of confusion. So yeah, fine. So today,
Uh,
mainly guys, if you get a time, right? So at least go through the binding modes and binding types for today, at least. So tomorrow, maybe you can focus on resource model and the routing and navigation. No, not resource model and formatter and expression binding. Okay.
I think one question actually.
Mhm.
When you means in a website, like whenever we select the drop down, so we also give one some specific number to identify
Hmm.
because characters might not be the correct value which should be used for the comparison purpose. So we provide generally the numbers. Like if I selected some, like you in the drop down, we were able to see some values. So for each value, like if I select that, and on the basis of that, I want to see the data in the output. So how we achieve this thing in this UI5? If I've selected that the chocolate, I think some value was there, and then basis of that, it should show the data in that area. So I'll so how what is the process I want to understand in this over
Yeah,
here
yeah,
because in mhm.
that only is the element binding that we are going to see now.
Acha, okay, okay, okay.
Okay, that only, right? So for example, from the table, if you're clicking, how to access this information and how to bind this, right?
I meant to say that suppose there is a chocolate with sprinkles. Okay. So
Hmm.
if I select that chocolate with sprinkles, so supposedly there is one more column, remarks, and in that we see some chocolates, sprinkles,
Hmm.
glaze, sugar. So if I select the chocolate with sprinkles, then I should only able to see only those values in the output. Depends on my
Output, right?
selection.
So
Yeah.
yes, 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 yeah. So for that, what we need to do means, yeah, we need to filter out the data then in that case.
Yeah.
So that filter concept, yes, filter is there. Filter and sorter, the two things are there, which I
Okay.
probably I want to explain that in OData model.
Acha.
But
Okay. No problem.
yes, we can try that. That's not an issue. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We can see this after 5 minutes. Okay.
Sure. Sure.
Maybe today we
Sure.
can complete this element binding, and with that filters and sorter also we can complete.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay then. Okay. So let's take a 5 minutes break and we'll continue after that. Hello?
Yes, Avikrant.
Yeah. Right. Mhm.
Sorry. Sorry for the late. Okay.
No.
Fine, fine.
So yeah, let's start with the element binding. Okay. So what is element binding or context binding? So far aggregation binding is completely different. Property binding is completely different. And element binding is also on top of that, it's completely different. Okay. Where we can use this element binding and how to do the element binding, that we will see it now. So the element binding means you're binding the context of the selected object to any control. Means in this case, okay, I'll give you the real-time example. So in real-time example where we can use this element binding. So the requirement is uh, the requirement is, as of now you're able to see only table. Okay. So now the requirement is the client is requesting us to design a table. Okay. Now, as soon as any customer or anyone clicks on any one of the row, so user should display that information in pop-up, or he should display that information in the new tab. Okay, or in the new page. That's what the basic requirement is. Okay, means the basic thing is what we need to do here. As soon as user clicks on any one of the row, which is a clickable row, that information need to be displayed in the pop-up. A detailed information need to be displayed in the pop-up with the help of bind element. Means as of now, the basic what client said that only five columns we can see in this case, right? Only five columns like product, supplier, price, dimension, and weight. But if user want to see more information, okay, as soon as he clicks on that row, or if he's clicking on the a button here that we will provide here, if he's clicking on that button, just provide a detailed information. Okay, detailed information in which he should be able to see a detailed information of that product. Okay, that kind of view we want to design. So how we can do that? Let's try to achieve it now. Okay, guys, I'm just commenting all the controller code. Okay, just trying to make this view file a little bit cleaner. Okay, fine now. So we'll create no what. Okay. Yeah, we didn't provided any items here. That's why it is not coming by default. Right? We provide here. Now it should come without even clicking on that update table data. Okay, fine now. Okay, so what we will do, we will add one one more column. Now I'm going to add a button here. Okay, fine.
Can't we achieve like by making one of the column has a hotspot like
No, no,
under
no.
and bandwidth?
Column,
No, it's not.
column you can't click.
Acha, acha, okay.
Column you can't click. There is only the clickable feature is only available at the row level, or you can
Eh,
add any button.
No, I mean to say that at the row level, like supposing under the product, there is a notification basic 15 or any unique field.
Mhm.
whatever, then notebook basic 17. So it should come under underline, and when we click on this row, then the pop-up should get triggered. Is it
Yeah,
possible
that
to
is
achieve
possible.
this?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
yes.
yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah.
say,
That's
see,
what I mean.
instead of
Mhm.
making this column, instead of making this column right clickable, you can do one thing. You can make this values below clickable ones. So as of you can directly use a link control here. Link you can add, and you can add a press event here.
Okay. Because in ABAP we achieve through hotspot. So,
Mhm.
mhm.
No, in SAP UI5 there is a link control. I think some issue is there. Okay, for link there is no. Hmm. Okay, now it should work. Fine now. Okay.
Yes.
So any link you can click. So if you want that based on the link, if you want to open the more information, that will also work. Which one should I try? These button click or this one?
This row click, row click.
This
Actually,
one, right?
button we have seen many examples, so I was just thinking.
Ha, ha, ha. Okay, fine. Yeah, a button we can keep it as it is. So we'll add a code on this row level. Okay. So now I'm just going to add. So as soon as I click right, the first process is we need to open a dialog box. Okay. And in that dialog box, we will design a simple form. And in that simple form, we will display all the information, whichever the record is clicked, right? So that one we will do. Open dialog. Okay, okay, 1 second. So I need to add here. Yeah. So guys, I'm just adding that method. Oh, this. Okay. So now the first thing is we need to open one fragment, right? To opening one fragment. So I will create one new file here. Mm, more info dot fragment dot xml. Okay, I will just copy the code from here, from this fragment, and I'll paste it here. Okay, so now what we need after that, we need one simple form, right? So that we can display this information. Okay, and again we need this form layout. Okay, it's already there. Fine. Okay, so handle close dialog is there. So that's fine now. Now column cell. Supplier price. Wait, after that. Wait, and again, what we can add more? Date of sale also we can add. Sorry. Fine, guys. Now, so only we have added the label. Okay, we have just designed a simple form which has how many fields? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 fields are there. Okay. So whichever row we will click, right? So that particular row's information we will display that inside a pop-up. That is inside the dialog box. Okay, that's the requirement basically. So now let's try to load this fragment. So for loading this fragment, what code do I need to write? So I will write fragment code is there right here. The same code I'll just copy and I'll paste it here. Okay, so instead of this dialog, I'll write here I will write more info. That's it. Okay, so dialog is done now. Okay, so let me see that. Okay, is our dialog box opening now? Yeah, it is opening now. Okay, so let's add one header also to this dialog box. And if user is clicking on the close also, so we will close the dialog box. Okay, fine now. Okay, but the information is not coming as of now. Okay, but at least our dialog box is opening. The next thing is that sign up. The sign up also we don't need it. Fine now, guys.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so now how to bring that information here? So that is the question. So to bring that information here, what we need to do, we need to use element binding. Okay, because whichever row you will click right at the end, so that row record we need to get. So at the end in the background, we need to get that context and that context information. Okay, that context information we have to provide and we need to pass that context information to this dialog box. Okay, that is the requirement. So how to pass that context and who will pass that context? The context, the person that who will pass this is the bind element. So we have one method bind element which generally used for the element binding or context binding. As the name suggests, you are just binding the element with the context. Okay, context means the clicked one, the clicked binding info means whichever record you are going to click. So internally we will get the binding info for that clicked record and that binding information we will pass to this dialog box in this case. Okay, so before I click, I'll do one thing. I'll create one variable So here I will declare only O event. Okay. So now let me do one thing. Okay, I will just put a breakpoint so that it would be more clear. Okay, so now I'm clicking on this second record, or let me click on this one. Technocom. Copy this O event, go back to the console, just type O event and just expand this. Okay, so are you able to receive any binding context or binding information? No, I don't see any binding info here. Can you expand the O source? Yeah, if we expand O source, we have an M binding infos. In this, we have the text. Okay, so M binding info we have. So here we can get the binding context. Yes, we have O context, and from that we also have this path. Okay, this only we need it actually. So I'll write a code to tell you. O
But
event
we
dot.
don't see the value, right?
Sorry, what?
But we don't see the value, that product, supplier, price, value in that.
Ah, that only. We'll see that now. Okay. So now we have this information where inside the O source, right? We don't have anything inside the M parameters. Okay. So now for getting the O source, we have the method get source. Okay. Now after that get source, we need to get the binding information. We need to get the information from the context, binding context, right? So if you look at it, as of now, we don't have any inside the O binding context, right? I can see blank here. Why? Because we are directly getting the O event. So if I write O event dot get source dot get binding context, we have one method get binding context. Okay, which is a standard methods. So now in this get binding context, we are getting undefined. Why? Because our model is not default model, right? We have provided a name to the model. So that's why it is not giving any information as of now. So if you want to get the information, you need to provide the model name here. So what is the name of the model that we have binded to the table? Product model. So just provide here. So now as soon as you provide, so now can you see we are getting the context. We are getting the constructor of that model. Constructor at the end means the constructor of that particular record, whichever we have clicked as of now. Okay, if I expand this constructor, you will get the instance of that model, which will hold that path. Okay, if I write dot get object. Can you see now? So we will have that clicked record information. Do we have that now? Name, price, quantity, supplier
Yes.
name, everything we have here. Because this context, it's already binded to the table. Now same context we need to get it, and that same context information we need to pass it to the dialog box. Okay, and how we can access that context? So with the help of get binding context. So get binding context, it is a method which will help us to get the context of the clicked record. Okay, whatever the binding we have done it right for that. So it will help us to get the context. Okay, so getting the context in this sense means it is just retrieving the information of that object of that binding. Okay, whichever or whatever you have clicked on that. So now there are two things you can get it from that. Once you get the context, you can get the direct actual object, or you can get the path. So for bind element, we don't need object. We only need path. Okay. So I'll show you what we actually do in bind element. So now I'm just going to store this path in one variable. Yeah, we already have one variable O context path. Okay. So now inside the O context path, we have the path of clicked record. Right? We have the path of the clicked record, which is nothing but we have clicked on the fourth record of product collection. So it's returning the path of that record. Okay. So now before we open, so I'm just going to do the bind element to this dialog box. Okay. So I will write bind element. Okay, so this bind element is available for any control. You can search for any control, like anything, like table, simple form, anything you can control. Like in this case, I'm just going to search for simple form. Search for bind element. Can you see your bind element? Okay, bind element. So bind element, it takes generally two parameters. The first one is the path. So path, we already have it here, right? So path, we already have it here. And the second parameter is the M parameters. In this M parameter, it is nothing but it is a object format. Okay, so in vpath also, so second parameter is optional. In first parameter, you can directly pass the parameter, or you can pass the object, manage object, in which we have the path, in which we have the model name. Okay, it depends on you how you need to provide. If I'm going to provide like this, so path, we have o context path, and next I'm going to provide the model name. So what is the model name? Is the product model, right? Now this is good. Okay, so once I do the once I bind this context to the model, sorry, to the dialog box, then inside this I can do my relative binding. So relative binding means I don't have to use slash. So whatever I done it right here table, so same I can do it here.
Here only the game is to find the path, right?
Yes. You just need to find the path and you just need to provide that binding information to the dialog box. You can provide that, you can do the bind element on dialog box, or you can also do it on simple form. But if you're doing it on the dialog, right, still this context will be available inside the simple form. Okay, that binding information is available inside this. You just need to provide it to the parent, so that binding information will be available to the children's. Okay, fine now. So now supplier name, price, and dimension, weight measure, date of sale, status, description. Okay, fine now. Now we are done. Now let's see whether we are getting the output or not. Okay, so now I'm going to click on this record. Okay, I don't see any information here. Why? Nothing is coming. Binding is good only. We have done the proper binding, and we have done the element binding to this model also, but still unable to see that. Why? Because one more method we are missing. Okay, so guys, we have to do one thing. So as the information we are displaying it in inside the fragment, right? So fragment is not part of view initially, but once you load the fragment, it will become the part of view. But if you want that data binding and the life cycle of views to work on, it should support to the fragment. Okay, so then what we need to do, we need to add one more method. Okay, we have to tell fragment that we have to tell view this dot get view dot add dependent. dependent, we need to add this dialog box or this fragment content to the view. Okay, so we are telling that this fragment, it is dependent on the view. So when we say that fragment is dependent on the view, so this fragment will support data binding and it will also support lifecycle methods. Means when the view is destroyed, your fragment is also destroyed, right? So lifecycle methods. So all that lifecycle methods will be applicable to the fragment as well. If you are adding add dependent. Okay, fine. Then only our data binding will work. Otherwise, your data binding will not work without this line of code. Add dependent is must. Without add dependent, you cannot, your data binding will not work. Can you see now information?
Yes, we can see now.
Okay. So with the, see, any whichever record I am clicking, it's directly getting that information. See? Okay, fine now.
So we
So
have
what
to
I've done?
select that, yes, that path we have to pass, right?
Yes, only path we need to pass and model name also we need to pass. So that path and model name, once we provide that, automatically it will bind that model information to that element. So in this case, what is the element? Element is the dialog box. Okay. So to this element, we are just passing that context so that our relative binding will work. So this is our relative binding.
Binding, yes.
Okay. So when your relative binding will work, so first of all, you need to provide the context, then only your relative binding will work. You cannot directly write name. Okay, it will not work. Before that, you need to provide some information, some high level information to that control, then only your relative binding will work.
But in relative binding, you always define that what we say, product model slash product of
No, slash.
like
What I said, in absolute
in the
binding, we will always
uh-huh.
have slash. In relative binding, we will not have slash.
No, but in top you define in the table part. If you go to table above,
Yes. This is
yes,
not a
here,
relative binding. This is absolute binding.
acha.
Okay. So this is the relative binding. In relative binding, when this relative binding will work, so if you want that relative binding should work, so first of all, we need to provide this information at the apparent level. Okay, this is high level information. So from this high level information only, it will gather the information for the other things. If you want the child level information to work without the slash, so first we need to provide this information. So same like that, we have provided the path to this dialog and also the model name. So then only our relative binding was working, right?
So that add dependent is important line that
Yes,
this
this add dependent is very important if you're working with the fragments.
acha.
Okay, because without add dependent, your data binding and your other lifecycle methods won't work on the fragment. Okay, guys, it's clear, right? Bind element.
Yes, it's
Yes,
here.
yes.
Okay, I so this bind element you can call it on dialog, so it would be sufficient. So in bind element, if you see the structure, right? See inside the bind element, it has two parameters. One is the v path. In v path, you can directly provide the path. When you will provide directly the string, if you don't have the name to the model, right? You can directly provide. But let's say if you have the name to the model, then two properties we need to define, right? One is the path and second is the model. So that we need to provide it in the object format. So that's what they have defined, string or the object. Okay. So if you click at this, right? So here it is the path which we already provided here, path. And the second is the model, which is optional. Okay. If you have the model name, so you can provide the model name or it is optional. Okay, it's clear, right? Guys, is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so now let's add some filter and sorter. Okay, so for adding the filter and sorter on view level, so let's see. First of all, we will add the filter on the view level, and then we will add it from the controller level. Okay, so from controller, how we can add that? Okay, fine now. So for adding the filter and sorter, so we have two APIs. Okay, from the model, you can search for filter here. Okay, so this filter, it is coming from the library sap.ui.model, means this filter for sure it will work on your model. Okay, so now if I want to add this filter on the model level, so how I need to add? So let me go back to the view. So first I need to provide this information in this path. Then you write filter colon square brackets, and inside that you can provide the path based on which property you need to filter, right? For example, let's consider I only want a record. Okay, I only want a record which has a price less than 1000. Okay, I'm just adding a filter on the table level. So I only want a record which has the price less than 1000. Okay, so that is the filter which I'm going to add. So that filter I need to add it on the price property, right? So this is the property price. Copy that price and paste here. And after that, after the price, what type of operator you need to provide? So there is an operator. So I'll tell you. So if you go to the filter, right? So it has couple of properties like path, operator, value n and value 2. Okay, inside the path, you need to provide the on which path or on which property you need to do the filter. So I need to do the filter on the price. Next is the operator. So operator means whether you want to provide equal to sign, less than sign, greater than sign, less than or between, greater than or equal to. So that kind of operator if you need to provide, so that information we will provide inside the operator. Okay. So this operator, it's already added. Operator, inside the operator, I will write it should be less than, right? It should be less than. So for operator, 1 second. Yeah, we have this operator, various operators we have like all, any, BT. This is between operator, contains operator, equal, the G means greater than or equal to, GT means only greater than, LE means less or equals. I want only less than. So I'm going to use LT. Only provide LT information, and after that, comma, give value 1. Now inside the value 1, you can provide 1000 because value you need to provide, right? And value, what is value 1? Value 1 is nothing but it is a property of filter. See? Okay, and value 2, when it can be used, let's say if you want to use a between operator, means if you want to filter the data from the first from certain values, the range of the values, then you can use value 1 and value 2. But if you want to provide only one value, so you can use the value 1. Guys, can you see now? See? I'm getting only the products which has the price less than 1000. Can you see now? Okay, what I've done, I'll tell you in straight language. So on table level, I provided a filter. Okay, filters, it is a standard property. Path is also standard property. So whenever you want to add one more property, right? So automatically this path which you have provided, right? So this path you need to provide in the path property. Path colons in single quotes you need to provide. You can't use double quotes because already on outside we have double quotes. If you're going to use double quotes, this will fail. You will get a syntax error. Okay, that's why I provided in single path. So that's why we have provided in filters. So filters colon and in square brackets. In array structure, I have defined because you can define multiple filters. So that should be added inside the array format. So again, this is the object structure. And inside that, first is the path of the property through which you want to filter and how you want to filter the operator, whether it should be less than or greater than, and just provide the value, the certain value you want to provide. So automatically the data will be filtered out from that JSON model.
But don't you think it should be dynamic? Because I don't think so. Very rarely we
No,
will
this is
get
not
this.
dynamic. This is just
Uh,
a fixed filter that you have provided. But let's say you want to filter it dynamically. Okay. So dynamic filtering, if you want, we can provide that now. But this is a basic level, means from the
mhm.
back end. For example, let's consider from the backend you're getting 25 records. Okay. So your backend guy, he does not have implemented any filter operation on the query. Okay. So as of now, the filter is not supported in that OData service. Okay, so what will happen? So you will read that information, you will store that information in one JSON model, and after that you will bind this JSON model to this table. But now if you want to do the uh, the application level filter or the client side level filter, so you can do that filter with the help of this syntax. Though your OData service is not supporting, but still you can filter out the data. Why? Because this data is stored on the client level, right? It is stored inside the JSON model. So from JSON model, you can filter out the data. Okay.
In OData also we have filter, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
See, in OData, if you want the filter, right? So you want to implement that. If you're
Yes,
adding that
yes,
logic,
filter.
it will work.
Mhm. Yes, yes.
For sure, it will work. Okay. Means as soon as you read the data, you will have already the filter out data. You don't need to provide here, right?
Okay.
But if you want to do the client level filter, right? Rather than doing the filter on the service, if you want to do the filter on the JSON model, so you can use this syntax. Okay. So now let's say you want to do the sorter also. You want to add the sorter also. You can give comma, you can add sorter, comma, sorry, colon, then provide the path. Let's say I want to do the sorting based on the price and I want to do the descending. So by default, it will see, by default, you will see now how it will sort. Okay, can you see now? By default, it is sorting with the help of ascending. Okay, so if you want that it should be descending, so you can add one property descending colon true. Now see, now it will display the price which has higher value, the product which has high price. Okay, fine now. Guys, is it fine?
Yes,
Yes.
Avi.
Okay, so you can also group if you want to. Means, for example, let's say if you want to group this, categorize this with the help of category. So there is a category, right? So let's do that. I'm just going to provide category. And after that, I'm going to say, can you see now? Can you see now?
Yes.
Our data, it is being
Yes.
categorized. Okay. So this is also you can do or you can achieve with the help of. So whenever you want to do the sorting or if you want to do the categorize, right? So you have to use sorter. And if you want to filter out the data, you can use the filters. Okay. Sorter, filter, everything is fine now. Now let's see how we can dynamically filter out the data. Okay, how to filter out dynamically this data. So I'll do one thing now. So already we have this filter out data, right? So let's do let's add one search field on the top. I'm just going to add one search field. Okay. So now on live change, as soon as user is typing, right? So there is a live change event. As soon as user type, a data should be filtered out inside the table. Fine. I'll just copy, I'll go back here, add the method function. Okay, so when I will do the filter, if the data is there inside this O event, then only it should filter out, right? Otherwise, unnecessarily it will filter out the data. It will display you the bank. Okay, don't do that. We all need a table ID. Okay, we need the table ID also. Okay, fine now. So on the top, we have the search field, right? So whatever you search, it should filter out the below table as well. So before I search, let me see. Let me get that information. If I'm typing. Okay. And the O event. Okay, can you see now here? We have a new value. O event get parameter. And inside that you can pass new value. So this is your value. Okay, fine. Now let's say I'm going to type 3. Now if I write, we should see the A3, right? So I'm going to write thing I'm going to write. Okay, it has value, then only it should filter out the data. So now for filter out the data, how to add the filter? First, we need to create a filter here. var o filter. Now this filter I will see. You can see, right, guys? This is how you need to define a filter constructor. Can you see here? This is
Yes.
a filter constructor. Just provide here, remove this test. We don't need it. Provide an operator. Let's say I'm going to write which LT. No, 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 not LT. Equal to. Equal to or contains we can use. Okay. Or otherwise, let me use the contents. That would be a better option. Operator contains. Yes. It will check for all the match. And then value 1. Inside the value 1, I will provide S query. Okay, got it, guys? Now this is my filter is ready now. Now I need to apply this filter on the table because at the end we are going to filter out the data from the table, right? Not from the JSON model, from the table we are going to filter out the data. Okay. So if you want to filter out the data, right? So let me get this. Let me write this. This is our table. So table dot get binding. In get binding, you need to provide items dot filter. Okay, can you see now? So how you need to filter out the table? So for filtering the table data, so you need to write, first of all, you need to get the table ID, and then you need to write dot get binding. So in get binding, what of the binding you want to get? You want to get the binding of items. So this will change, guys, because as this is a table which supports aggregation binding of items. So we need to get the binding of items. Okay. So once you get the binding of items, you can see it has a filter, it has a sorter. Okay. So this application filter is already added in this. Okay. And you can also see the sorter is already added based on the category, which has the group also, right? So this two information is already added. This is application filter. Now you want to add a filter on the table level. So, and then that will appear inside a filter. Okay. So how you need to write? You need to write o table dot get binding dot items or dot filter. Inside that filter, you need to provide this o filter. If nothing is there, right? What you need to do in this case? I don't know now what needs to do after this. Okay, let's do now. Let's try. Okay, so let me type. Maybe I will type power. Okay, let me type power. Okay, it's not filtering out the data. Ah, okay, only string values are supported. Okay, sorry. So we need to filter out based on the product. Okay, so I'm going to provide instead of price, right? Product.
Product ID is there. Product ID is there.
No, product ID, no, name. We need to filter
Yeah.
out on the name property. As of now, we are filtering through the price. So guys, one thing to remember, okay? So if you have a property, if you have the values in integer format, so in this case, if you look, inside the price, we have the data in number format, right? So on such data type, your contents operator will not work. Okay, only equal to operator will work in that case. So contents operator will not work. What contents will do, it will check for each and everything. Means from the price, it will check. Let's say if you have the value in the string format, then it would have worked. But as it is a number, so that's why the content is not working. Okay, so now I'm going to filter out from the name. Now let's see whether it filter out the not. Can you see now?
Yes. It is
Yeah.
filtering.
Okay, is it filtering out all the data? One thing we need to do on live change, it is getting updated. So if nothing is there, right? So we need to do one thing. Okay, so if I write power and if I remove, it should bring all the data. See, it's bringing right now. Okay, so if the value is there, like if nothing is there, it will not match. If it is matching, it will bring, as we have added based on the live change. Okay, guys, it's clear.
Yes.
Okay, so this is how you can add the dynamic filter. So you get the value, you pass that information in value and create your filter constructor. And by constructing the path operator and value and pass that inside the filter method of table. So before you call the filter method, before that you need to write get binding of items. And after that you need to write dot filter and inside that pass the filter information. Okay. And if you're not going to filter anything, right? As soon as if user is removing all the values, you just pass the blank one so that that filter will be cleared entirely and you will see all the records. Okay. Guys, it's clear.
Yes, yes, Abhi.
Yes.
So yeah. So can we stop now? I think
Yes, Abhi.
my
Yes.
throat
Yes.
is little bit
Yeah,
since completely from morning from 3 hours I'm
yeah. Yes,
completely
yes, yes.
speaking.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
Abhi.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just export this project source code and I'll also upload that recorded video. It's today's video so that it both will be available for your reference.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Okay, Abhi.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, yeah, let's connect tomorrow in the evening, 8 o'clock.
Yes, Abhi. Yes.
Okay,
Okay,
so
Abhi.
before
Okay.
that, at least you have time. So just practice this. This is very important, guys. And
Mhm.
99% everywhere you have to do this.
Mm.
If you're not able to do this, then you're not a good UI5 developer. Okay, these are the basic things anyone will expect from you.
Okay.
Avik, I have something like means I want to ask that will be getting the like theoretical notes also for this part, like or
Theoretical notes, see, the best thing is what you can do. This filter and all code, you will get it from samples only. Okay. So for each, like for table also, they have added so many things. So if you go to the responsive table, right?
no, this is okay because why I'm asking means in the interview perspective also, like
Interview
what kind of
perspective, you can directly refer documentation. This is best reference you can get it. Documentation. Whichever you
yeah,
want to search, right? You directly search here. You will get that documentation. Filtering, sorting, counting, everything you will get it here inside the
okay.
documentation. Okay. This is the best documentation so far or best reference you can get it here. Okay. Nothing is better from this. Whatever
So
like model also, if you want to search for model, everything you will get. JSON model or binding types. See,
so in interview, like what kind of question can we expect in the bind?
yeah. So from interview, the basically the questions will be like what are the binding types? What are the binding modes? Okay. What would be the default binding mode for JSON model? How many projects you have completed? What are the challenges you have faced? Okay. Have you worked with the custom controls or have you do you know how to configure the tile on Fury Launchpad? Okay. Like have you created a dynamic app? So all these basic questions only they will ask. Okay.
Okay.
Nothing more than that.
Hmm.
So basic whatever I'm covering here, right, in this session or on this in this training, right? So that would be enough to crack the interview.
Okay.
Okay. So
Can
apart
we?
from that, extra things like means they will ask something. They will also ask you some more methods or events from the JavaScript. Like in JavaScript map method, what it will do, what are the string methods, what concat method will do. In some extra basic logic they will ask you from the JavaScript. Okay, nothing else from that.
Okay.
Fine. Okay, so let me, so the project I have imported it. So yeah, I will just
Avik,
upload this
hello.
video, guys.
Hello, Avik.
Yeah.
Actually, the JavaScript we are using here in this controller JS, and
Mm-hmm.
normally I was watching the JavaScript lectures on W3 schools.
Mm-hmm.
Those are completely different.
Yes, those are
There
completely different.
there they're
Because
using
see,
document dot, and here we are using this dot
right,
and
right. Yes, that's the, because see, UI5 it is a framework, right? So framework for sure it will provide its own methods and APIs. Okay, that's why we don't need JavaScript entirely. You just need a JavaScript for the syntax purpose, right? Like where this, how to store the values, how to declare the functions, how to declare the object, how you can manipulate the arrays or object. For that only we need the JavaScript in SAP UI5. So that only we have covered so far, right? In a basic session for the JavaScript.
yes, yes.
I didn't cover document.getElement by ID. Okay, because that syntax we don't have to use it in this controller part. Because what this SAP UI5 is doing, so this framework is providing all the methods, and that methods will help you to access the information. So you don't need any core JavaScript knowledge if you want to work with UI5 applications.
Yeah,
Only
that's what I was
frameworks
thinking.
methods are sufficient.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Once you are familiar with UI5, later you can explore more. If you want to if you want to dive in, right, more in deep, so in that case you can explore more the JavaScript, core JavaScript, and after that. Okay, so guys, yeah, let's close the session for today. So I'll
Yeah,
upload this video. Okay, so you can just check it. I will not ping on the group. So after some time you can check in the group. Sorry, in that drive folder. Okay, fine. So bye bye. Thank
Oh,
you.
yeah,
okay,
Avik.
Avi. Thank you so much. Bye.